I having the connection and having the faith that I have in God as a Christian, I know that I can take myself somewhere quietly and
Mhm.
I can talk to God in prayer.
Hello there, and welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, where midlife isn't a time of crisis, but a time of metamorphosis. Just like the journey through puberty and pregnancy to postpartum, our midlife transition is also a powerful portal of rebirth. The wise woman inside of us is calling, inviting us to slow down, to take stock, to speak our truth, to burn away all that no longer serves us, ready to step forward into our next phase of life. I'm your host, Kylie Patchett, storyteller and midlife self-care coach, and together we'll unearth the real and raw stories of women who are right in the messy, magical middle, or have come out the other side, and the healers who help all of us through these crossroads of change. I hope that as you listen to these tales of breaking the ties that bind, shedding skins, and courageously chasing midlife dreams, that you too will answer the wise woman's invitation and set yourself wild and finally fucking free. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the podcast. Today, I am chatting with the lovely Mari Fox. How are you, Mari?
Very well, thank you, Kylie.
I'm very excited for this chat. Mari is another one of my beautiful mastermind besties, and it's really cool to actually get to interview each of you because then I get to learn the why behind what you do in the world and more about you. So welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you.
Um, for those of you who don't know you and also your business, could you introduce yourself for our listeners and then we'll dive on in.
Okay, so I am a mother, first of all, mum to
Mhm.
one. I am a dog lover. I
Yes.
am a hockey player in the winter. Uh,
Ooh.
I also consider myself to be an introvert and
Hmm.
also a small business owner. And so in my business, I help businesses, other businesses behind the scenes with their administration. So it could be a range of different things.
Yeah.
And I also really like to combine my knowledge of administration and my creativity and my faith and get them to embrace all of that and be the best version of themselves.
So cool. Such a good introduction. I feel like I need to tick a big box of how to how to introduce you. I want to go in so many different fellow dog lover, first of all. Very bad sports player, so I cannot say that I'm at all relating to the hockey thing. But my best friend in primary school was a mad keen hockey player. So I've spent a lot of time watching hockey, just not playing it, because I think I would break my shin. That's what I like. I'm that uncoordinated that I would be in the way when someone does one of those big whack shots, I reckon. Anyway.
That's why we wear shin pads and mouth
True.
guards.
True. True, true. I feel like I should, like, if I could play in one of those big bubbles, that would be good because then, because I am literally the least coordinated person I know. I don't know whether I've shared that on the podcast before, but there you go. I am excited to talk to you. I was saying to you before we started recording that one of the things that I have noticed as I get older is actually two things that are almost side by side. I don't have a necessarily a strong religious background or faith. And I was laughing to you saying, air quotes, I was raised Catholic, but really only just lip service towards that because I went to a Catholic school. But I'm feeling a really deep pull the older I get to kind of connect to more of a spiritual practice or a connection with something deeper. And I was sharing with you, I've got this beautiful friend, Sam, who she has such a strong faith and it is able to guide her through so many things with this certainty and anchoring and grounding that I am really drawn to. And when you answer the podcast questions, one of the things that you mentioned, and also in your intro, was about how your faith has played such a big role in, guiding you through a lot of different challenges that we will get to. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, were you raised with a strong faith as a kid, or did you sort of develop it in a later life?
So I was brought up in a household where only one parent did actually regularly attend church,
Mm-hmm.
but so I regularly attended church with my mum for Sunday school and youth group and all those sorts of things, and
Yeah.
got to go on kids camps and be around other kids who shared a
Mm-hmm.
similar faith as well. And so from a very young age, I was spoken to about God, about Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and how that can play a part, how that plays a part in your life. And so over time, I've been able to go back to those things that I learned as a kid, and
Yeah.
draw back on that for strength through the different challenges that I've experienced in
Mm.
my adult life.
Yeah. That's what I feel. That's what it's like a strong, stable foundation. That's the sense that I get when I talk with my friend Sam, and when I talk with other people that it's interesting. I'm just about to go away to New Zealand, and two of those friends out of the five of us have also been brought up in strong faith backgrounds. And it's such a different way of seeing things, particularly when things get a little bit tricky or challenging. And you had shared in your answers some of the times. I'm going to guess, although I should just ask you, when do you find that you draw the most on your faith? And what assurance does it give you? Like, I'm not finding the right words because I don't actually really truly have an experience of what we're talking about, but I'm interested to hear what language you would give us.
Mm. So there's a couple of different instances where I might really draw into my faith, and one of
Mm-hmm.
those is a tough time.
Yeah.
So if I'm facing a particular challenge, now it might be business related or it might be personal or health related,
Mm-hmm.
I having that connection and having the faith that I have in God as a Christian, I know that I can take myself somewhere quietly and
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to God in prayer.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing is even if I can't find the words and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's just crying,
Yeah.
that's fine too. God
Yeah.
understands. So, and it gives me that sense of security, and it gives me a sense of hope that it doesn't matter what's going on, it's
Mm.
okay because God has me. And so,
Mm.
that's sort of the tough times. But then on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, if something amazing happens, I always try and take a moment to go, thank you, God,
Yeah.
because there are certain things that you go, how did that happen? Like,
Yeah.
how did that door open? And it could even be as simply, I really wanted that car park and it's available,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
particularly if you're going somewhere that's unfamiliar and you want a close car park. I mean, I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sounds fairly trivial, but honestly, some days it's just like, oh yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
it's finding those moments to not just pray and ask for help, but also praise and be thankful for that gratitude for,
Mm.
for what has come your way.
I find that such a much more refreshing, because I think my personal lived experience in a Catholic school, without having gone through the whole, like all of the sacraments. I'm not even using the right language, am I? Sacraments, like
I'm
the first Holy
I'm
Communion and all of those things. You're not Catholic, obviously.
no, I'm not.
Okay, so I hadn't gone through all of that formal stuff, right? So I arrive at this Catholic school, having gone to a state primary school. And I was telling this story the other day. It's so strange that we have this conversation, or not strange at all. And I arrived there, and very quickly it's figured out that I haven't had all of these things, and therefore I can't take communion in church services and whatever. And obviously, when you're in a very strong faith-based school where everyone but you is receiving those things, it's very obvious. So very, very soon I found myself at the kind of receiving end of um, people saying I must do things that I didn't understand. And I think it's because, to a large extent, I wasn't brought up going to Sunday school. I wasn't brought up in that type of environment where I had that kind of grounding or connection. And for me, at kind of 13, when you're going through that teenage angst, it was like some just external thing. And what I saw in my fellow students was almost like geez, I'm not actually being negative towards the whole faith of being Catholic. I'm just observing that it seemed to me like a lot of the people that also went to that school felt that they could act in any way during the week, but as long as they went to church and asked for forgiveness, which is a very Catholic thing. Now, obviously, that is also coloured by the perceptions of a teenage mind with all of its, not belonging and all of the other stuff that's going on with that drive for autonomy and whatever. But when you talk about in both of those situations, so times of stress and strain, trying to overcome something, but also in celebration and also in thanks, that makes much more sense to me than what I kind of saw. I don't know why. That's a very long-winded story just to say that when I hear people like you that have been brought up with a faith, that I love how you actually said it, a sense of security and a sense of hope. Like, it's like I'm held, I'm supported. I know that there's something else bigger than me there.
Yeah.
When you, because you're the mum of a 12-year-old now.
Yes.
So take us back to you're pregnant, you had this little person, and you find yourself with, unfortunately, postnatal depression, which is like such a significant issue for so many women. How did your faith play a role in getting through that and making sense of it? I guess that's my question. Like, does your faith also help you find purpose in those types of really challenging times?
So when you are first diagnosed with postnatal
Mm-hmm.
depression, it can be a fairly scary time.
Mm.
And looking back, I don't understand the reasons why the doctor, because I actually did it I overcame postnatal depression without medication.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know why my doctor at that time didn't prescribe me medication.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he had his reasons.
Mm.
And as a first time mum, I didn't know to maybe that I could ask questions
Yeah.
and maybe I could find out more information. But
Mm-hmm.
I was given access to a counsellor, and
Mm-hmm.
through that, she was able to help me understand what was happening, but also give me extra tools to get through each day.
Yeah.
And I guess how my faith played a part in that was knowing that I wasn't alone. Even like at 2 or 2:30 a.m. in the morning where I haven't had much sleep, the baby's unsettled, he
Mm.
won't go back to sleep.
Mm.
I wasn't alone. And sometimes, you can look back and go, where did I find the strength for that?
Mm.
How did I actually get through that? How was I able to retrain my brain? Um, and, part of that is, being given external tools, like,
Mm.
speaking with a counselor. And
Yes.
part of that for me, I go, well, it must have been God. Like,
Mm.
how else could have it happened, to give me that extra strength?
Hey, gorgeous. We interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepaget.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. I think what you're saying, because so much of our suffering comes from a sense of, actually, there's 2 things that I want to say. I always come back to when I very first started doing training in traditional Chinese medicine. One of my first teachers used to say the definition of stress is the difference between your expectations and reality. And that has always, like, it's the gap. And where I was going in my mind as you're talking is, the thing that causes the most suffering is our story about what is happening. It's not necessarily the thing that's happening. And having just been through a ridiculously sleepless night, again, thanks to perimenopause, I find myself in the middle of the night going, it's all fine. There's always enough time and energy to do everything important to me. Because what I used to do was rail against this, like make it just even more stressful. And I think, listening to you, if I'm understanding you correctly, your sense is you weren't isolated, even though it would have felt scary and, different if you've never experienced that sort of mental health episode before. And also, obviously, you've got a baby, so you've got this big identity shift, which is happening all alongside of it. But you would never have felt isolated because you've got this surety that you're connected to. What a powerful place to find yourself. Again and again and again, every time. Like, yeah, I just love the concept of, like I said before, like I talk about the universe because I do believe that there's something bigger than us, but I've never had the language of God or any particular sort of story about who that is or why that is or whatever. How do you, and this is a question that you don't necessarily have to answer if it's not comfortable to, but what I've got in my mind is, how do you feel about people talking about things that you would ascribe to God, like to not credit is not the right word, but to kind of connect with God and God's presence or God's influence on things. When you hear people like me using words like universe or something much less kind of structured, what's your thoughts, if you're comfortable like talking about it? Because I just think it would be an interesting, I've never actually thought about that before.
Well, like I've mentioned before, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, and with that, I believe in creation, as in that God created the universe. So when I hear people speaking about the universe, it doesn't necessarily bother me. I don't have an issue with it, because for me, in my mind, it's like, well, okay, just if you just went one more level up,
it's like, talk to the boss.
Then you'd be at creator. But at the same time, a lot of being able to get along in the world is to have tolerance, and it's absolutely fine for people to have a different set of beliefs to mine. And so if they prefer to think along those lines, then that's up to them.
Yeah, have at it. I really like that. It's like talk to the boss man. Go one up the chain. You're talking to the supervisor, you need the manager. I love that. I love that. I love that. I am interested to when you started talking about like you feel so committed and so clear on your purpose of helping people to express themselves and become the version of their, their best selves through business and through kind of like behind the scenes support. I don't know why, but I don't know. This is how my brain works in an interview. I almost feel like the role that you're talking about God feeling to you, and I know this is, this is on a much smaller scale. I'm not attributing you with godlike powers, although wouldn't that be lovely? But when you say a sense of security and a sense of hope, do you feel like that's part of the feeling that you give business owners when they know that you're taking something off their plate? That
Well, I would like to think that they feel that sense of security,
mm,
not just relief as in, "Oh,
oh, thank God, yeah.
I don't have to do that
Mm,
task anymore that I don't like, I'm not good at, or takes me
yes.
far too long." But also knowing that, when they start, that when you start a small business, it becomes like its own your own little, business baby.
Yep,
And
definitely.
to be able to hand any of that over to somebody else, you wanna make sure that you're gonna hand that over to the right sort of person.
Mhm.
And I would hope that, business owners would feel comfortable in handing over a little bit and, delegating a little bit to me so that I can walk with them, just
Yes.
as God walks with us every day, walk
Yeah.
with them on their journey so that not only am I helping them, I'm enabling them and empowering them to help others. I'm
Mm.
helping in that ripple effect
Yeah.
of everyone being the best that they can be.
So cool. I love the idea of the ripple effect because why I asked that question is because I've had a bit of an on and off journey with trying to outsource in my 2 iterations of business. And in my first business, I was still running the programming of micromanaging and having to do everything with the baby. The business baby was like everything to me back then. And then something interrupted that pattern in my personal life, and I let go of that, walked away from that business, and now I'm back, having been back for about 18 months. And I'm just about to fly out of the country tomorrow. And the feeling that I get from being able to ask a team of people that I've selected for exactly like you're saying, these are the things that I'm not good at, I don't have a skill set around, or I hate doing, or takes me 3 times as long as someone who actually knows what they're doing, let's face it, and nowhere near as good. My overwhelming feeling is that feeling, I would use the word safety, but I think it's similar to that feeling of security that you're describing, because when you do find the right support people in your business, that's exactly what it feels like. And being able to depend on your business baby being taken care of. It's almost like a babysitter, if we want to take the analogy one step further. But, like I'm not worried about walking away, which is such a beautiful thing because what you're giving business owners is the ability to stay in the zone that they're good at. And so not stretch, not push against resistance, not try and do things that they're, frustrate them and make them feel stuck, but actually set them free to do what they do best whilst you do what you do best. So so you've got an admin background, but talk to us about the shift into, because you have your own business as well yourself. How did that unfold? Was that nudging onto the path of entrepreneurship yourself, or were you always planning to?
Well, there's a few different factors
Mm,
that led me towards starting my own business,
mm,
and like we've mentioned before, I have a 12-year-old son. But
mhm,
when he was much younger, I was still working part time in a traditional business.
mhm,
They were changing direction,
mhm,
and even though I was offered to stay, I
mm.
decided that wasn't quite where I wanted to go. And so I decided to step away from traditional employment and do some part-time study.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that was happening at that time was I'd also recently become a single mum. And so there was a whole lot of factors There was also the timeline's a bit hazy, but somewhere in there, I've also had a parent with health issues as well. So to step away from traditional employment and
Mhm.
be able to find some part-time study that I can do within school hours,
Mhm.
it suddenly opened up this huge time flexibility that I hadn't experienced before. And a combination of, learning different things, having that time flexibility, and going, well, what if I drew upon my years of experience
Mm.
and created employment for myself so that I could work in a way that works for me and my family? And
Yes.
then that led me down the path of um, opening up a business
Yeah.
and doing what I do now and doing it in a way that I do now as well.
Yeah. Amazing. What sort of stumbling blocks have you overcome in your own business? Kind of maybe what you see your clients do too, but I'm just interested because excuse me, when you all of a sudden get that time freedom and all of that choice freedom, sometimes it can be a little bit, I don't know, I found it confronting when I first started working in a business. I was like, hang on, where's the structure? I don't
Mm.
like I can just free flow all over the place. And I am someone who needs structure. And so I kind of struggled with that. But did you find anything challenging when you first set up, or was it all just like, thank you. Thank you,
Well,
manager.
when I transitioned from part-time work into studying,
Yeah.
there was a period of time where I'm just like, I was just sort of floating, and it's just like, oh, hang on a minute. I've got an end date. I need to
Mm.
have all of my study finished by an end date. So I'm going
Yeah,
to have
gotcha.
to put some boundaries in
Mhm.
place
Mhm.
and get into a routine of
Yeah.
some description so that I can get what I need done
Yep.
in the right time. And that's sort of continued on
Mm.
into my business. I've tried to set up my week so there are certain days when I prefer to have any client calls or client-based things.
Mhm.
And then there are other days that I allow for working on the business rather than just in the business.
Yeah.
And another thing that I found really helpful is actually batch batching um, similar tasks together. So
Yes.
instead of trying to write a social media post one a day,
Mhm.
actually allocate time once a week or once a fortnight and write a couple at a time and get them all
Yeah.
scheduled.
I love that. When I was helter skeltering with no batching and also I think the other thing that I did really poorly in my first business was I even though I love systems, I didn't take the time to pause and build the system. And so every time I did something, I would be recreating the wheel almost to kind of, and especially if it was something that I didn't do like on the daily or whatever. And I just think that the power of having external objective eyes on your business as well is very helpful for spotting where you're getting in your own way and you can't even see that you're getting in your own way. Do you have a mind that works in like process driven? I always think like VAs are so good at seeing that stuff, but I don't know whether that's all VAs. But is that something that really like efficiency and managing things in the most streamlined and simple and aligned way possible? I feel like that's like a superpower of you guys.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm someone that really does well with routine,
Mhm.
and also within that routine, if there are regular systems or
Mhm.
processes to follow, so that you know that you're doing the same thing
Mhm.
each time to try. And obviously, most of the time, we want to get the same outcome.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the other thing is by having a system or a process set up, which means you know that step 1, this is what you do, step 2, this is what you do, step 3 that you do,
Mhm.
it then removes that extra decisions that you need to make, and so it reduces the decision fatigue that you might
Yeah.
have as a business owner. Because, we've got to make decisions, and sometimes we have to make decisions quickly, but if you have a cheat sheet or a template of some description set up, and it could just be simply setting up a form. So when people inquire with you, um, this is the form that gets sent to them, and they fill
Mhm.
it out. So you're asking exactly the same questions and every time, and then well, that just builds into more information that you can collect and other data to analyze
Yeah.
and everything else like that.
I just, as you're talking as well, for people, so I always feel like I've got two sides to my personality. I love routine and structure, but too much of it. And then I've got an internal rebel that's like, I want to just do whatever I want. And she's like crazily flipping around all over the place. And I think I know what I've discovered in my own business journey is having the processes and the systems is like having the edges or the boundaries. And then I get to play and flow with creativity and what sparks my interest inside of that. Because if I am let loose, goodness knows where we will end up. And I think that is partly to do with ADHD too. But um, yeah, having those, it's almost like the guardrail. I'm thinking about like when you're bowling, when you don't know
Mm,
how to bowl very well and they put the bumper rails up. That's what I feel like the systems are. It's kind of, and I guess someone who's into more of the kind of masculine versus feminine energy, like the systems of the masculine, like the routine and the structure and the edges, and then we get to flow inside of it, which is kind of a more feminine energy if you're into that woo sort of stuff. um what would you say, especially for women? Do you work mainly with women in their own
yes,
businesses?
yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what have you observed are some of the commonalities of barriers that you see when you first start working with someone that are, and they could, I guess they could be like the hard things or the soft things. So is it processes or is it like mindset that says, I don't have anything decent to say or whatever? What do you think? What do you see over and over? Or is there no patterns? Maybe there isn't.
I don't know that I have observed many patterns.
Mhm.
Um, I'm actually not sure I can answer that question.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just curious because I think it's probably because when I'm working with a woman in business and we're writing about her and her story, that by definition brings up a lot of stuff about being seen and playing the good girl, or the don't want to provoke anyone or want to make sure that we kind of what's that word, palatable is what I see that a lot. But I think that also comes with the territory of I work almost exclusively with healers and helpers in terms of like the allied health people, the coaches, the counselors, the psychologists. And I think there's a pattern there of, or it's almost like a bit of a imposter sort of complex that I see sometimes. But I wonder whether that's just because I'm working with a subset of women. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Um, what about in terms of when you moving to having more time flexibility? What has that meant for you personally? So you've started this business and you obviously get a lot of satisfaction from being that support person. So there's that personal satisfaction. What's it meant to the things that you value external to the business world that you're in?
So for me, I guess it comes down to family. And as having a school age child,
Mhm.
there are quite often different assemblies or sports days
So
or other
many.
days or other things that you might like to get to, that
Mhm.
if I was in a traditional role, it may be a little more difficult to
Mm.
get to. But the other thing for me, I have aging parents, and there's been
Mm.
health issues along the way. So to have the type of business that I have, the time flexibility and working from home, it's meant that if I need to also step into a carer's role for either of my
Mm.
parents, it's meant that I can actually do things side by side. I can drop my son off at school. I can, care for my father from time to time,
Mhm.
who has dementia and
Mm.
Alzheimer's. Um, and I can also work in my business, help other people, and earn an income for myself.
So cool, isn't it? Imagine not having the internet. Like actually, I mean, I jest, but when I first opened my business in 2011, we had the internet. but we did not have ready access to so many tools and so many, I guess, like software solutions that make things a lot kind of simpler, or potentially, if used well, because obviously any tool is not useful until it's actually applied properly. But yeah, I often think, I remember back in those days I had a podcast called League of Luminary Ladies, because us copywriters love alliteration. And I remember having this moment one day where I was talking to a lady in the States, and I was just like, is this not crazy that we're talking to a box? You're in South Australia, I'm in country Queensland. Do you ever have those moments where you're like, how is this even possible? When you're talking about your parents, and particularly the dementia and Alzheimer's journey, because I have walked the beginning of a similar kind of path, although with a step parent, which also then has different layers of things going on. Particularly when you're used to being an only child and all of a sudden there's step siblings involved. But anyway, what has that taught you in terms of, like, how does your faith help you through that, finding the, I don't know, you may not be as far along in that journey, but as your dad changes, how does your faith help? And it's probably more of what we've already talked about, but I'm just interested how you
Yeah.
can kind of.
It's so in the early years, it was just getting used to what that means, and that there might be changes, and obviously there are changes as things progress. And I guess as you go along the journey, even though my father is still alive, he's not the same person that he was 12 months ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so you almost have this living grief, that you are saying goodbye to different parts or different versions of dad as he progresses. So having a faith and knowing that I am supported no matter what happens, I am supported. It gives me strength to carry on, and then obviously support the rest of the family as we're traveling this together. And it also means that recently my dad's gone into residential care, having the faith that the right spot will open up at the right time, and that everything will work out for the best. And it has. In my opinion, he's got the best room in the facility, and the staff there are lovely. And the way he's been able to connect with people, and some of them, because it's still in his local town, there are other people in there that he knows, and has known for many years. And just being able to see that he is supported and that he is being looked after, that does take a weight off. But knowing that God had played a part in that, that just keeps me going.
Does it ease your? First of all, I just want to really acknowledge the beautiful way you put that it's living grief. Because it so is, isn't it? It's losing little parts of the person that you knew and love and had a connection with, and that connection shifts and changes. And do you think your dad is not the one that has a strong faith, though? Because I was going to ask about how that actually also helps with the thoughts of his final transition to the next phase. When you feel into that, it's this ridiculous hypothetical question. Where I was going to go was, can you imagine facing the ultimate loss, at the end stage of Alzheimer's, which unfortunately is always, the same point? When you think about that through the lens of faith, does that also give you that more settled
I
belief in what's next?
I don't know that it's necessarily feeling settled. I mean, intellectually, I know that there's going to be further decline intellectually. There'll become a day when he doesn't know who I am. Intellectually, there'll be a day where he may not be able to function in much capacity at all. Um, Having faith, I don't know that, I guess one of the things is I just have to have hope and trust that when the time comes for each of those stages,
Yeah.
God will get me through.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not an easy thing to feel into, no matter what your belief system is. Yeah. I just really appreciate, yeah, being able to have a conversation with someone on a similar journey and see how you look at things, because I feel like my personal response was to rush to the worst case scenario, because I'm a safety seeker in terms of like figure out all the things that could happen and then try and figure out like, all of these kind of, I don't know, contingency plans. And of course there is no surety, but when you have trust in the fact that no matter what happens you will be able to get through it, that is a powerful place to experience it through. How has, if you don't mind going here, and I'm very happy for you to say no, how how do you feel like your mum's experience is supported by her faith? Does she experience the similar sorts of feelings, do you know, of what we've talked about, that hope and security, so that sort of anchored foundational belief system?
I can't really speak for her, but I
Mm,
would like to think so.
mm,
And because we have open conversations, and we quite often, not just for this issue, but there might be for other friends and families,
mm,
like, hey, can you just keep this person in your prayers?
mm.
And sharing that load, not just with individuals, but with God as well. I think it helps to lighten the load, to lighten the burden. And if you feel like that load is supported,
Mm-hmm.
well, then you go, well, okay, maybe anything is possible.
Yeah.
We just keep supporting each other, keep
Mm.
praying, and what happens happens. And sometimes a delay doesn't necessarily mean it's a no. A
No.
delay might be protection.
Mm. Mm. Yes, yes, yes. I love that understanding. Something that I've strong belief that I've brought my kids up with is like, yeah. I know it's been kind of like memeified lately, though. It's like rejection is not, but I can't remember the language that's like, it's not rejection, it's redirection, I think is the meme version. And I'm like, goodness me. Do we have to cheapen everything into, single social media post? Not that I'm not a fan of sharing things through social media. That's something we haven't actually talked about, because I know you have a deep love of harnessing creativity through Canva as well as part of your business. So if you're working with a business owner and they haven't necessarily got the skills to be able to share like the imagery and the like feeling of their brand, tell us a bit about that, because I feel like when you talk about that in our coaching calls, you're like face beaming.
Canva is one subject that I can speak at
Yeah.
length on at a moment's notice.
Yep, yep, yep.
So in terms of how I help businesses with using Canva as a
Mhm,
tool, so there's different ways I can teach them how to use Canva.
mhm,
I can work with them, if they've, I'm trying to do something, but they can't quite work it out. I
mhm,
can help them with that. Or if they're like, I know that I should be using it as a tool, but it's a little bit overwhelming. Can you set up a template or
mhm.
templates for me?
Yes.
That's one thing that I can do. And the other thing I can do is I can come in and do a design rescue. So
Oh.
if they've started a design or they've started a presentation, if
Mhm,
they're a speaker or a coach or something like that. They've
mhm,
started a presentation, but they're like, "Oh, I've been staring at it for too long. I'm not sure if everything looks nice. Can you just go in and make sure everything's in alignment and it's in with my brand and all that sort of stuff?" Well, then
yeah.
I can come in and do that for them. I mean, I can also help them, if they've just done a brain dump in Word and then they want that translated into
Something.
something, whether it's a lead magnet, whether it is a worksheet or something like that, I can then, interpret what
Yeah.
they've given me and display it in a way that reflects their brand and their message.
So cool, because that is such a skill set that when you have it, it's almost like we mistakenly feel like everyone can do it, but not everyone has that natural skill set. And just like I am blown away by some of the things that I've been able to hand over to my team who do it in a third of the time. And I like to think I'm pretty across things technically. No, 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 Kylie. Newsflash. I think I've finally reached the age at almost 50 where I've kind of hit like a ceiling of like, there's a whole generation of people underneath your kids even that have so much more awareness of all the technical logical stuff, can't even say the word, and all of the social media stuff and all of that, that it's such a joy to be able to just hand it to someone whose skill set is the natural innate ability. They take it, they run with it, and it comes back 50 times better than what I could have done. And when I hear you say, I take a brain dump and I turn it into, I'm like, yes, that is the magic that we all need in our businesses. Because the other thing I want to point out too is sometimes what we're looking for when we're looking for a VA is more of the time freedom that you talked about. So it's not necessarily we can't do the task, it's just that we don't want to anymore. And again, back to that feeling of safety of just being able to give it to someone who does it really well and in alignment with your brand and turns it into something that feels and looks like everything else in your business. Like, what a joy. How cool is that? Like, I just think, I love the language of design rescue too, because what you said about looking at something too long,
Mm.
that is such a thing, isn't it? It's like I'm too close. And I say to my clients when we're writing a book together, sometimes they'll say, I just can't look at it anymore. I'm like, yes, because you've been down in the trees and you can't see the forest. You need to go away, have a
Mm.
weekend, go and have some fun, and then come back in with an eagle eye view so that you can see things. But sometimes, I don't know, it's like your eyeballs get stuck and you can't really take it all in or something. So what a joy to be able to actually give it to someone like yourself that has the skill set. We haven't talked about your business name because I think this is the coolest business name ever. Please introduce your business. We'll put the links in the show notes anyway, so we should talk about where to find you. But what is your business name?
Crafty Fox by Design.
So fun, so fun, so fun. I love it. I love when people have cool last names that they can make into groovy business names. I'm like, Patchett. That's great. Patchett. It makes me sound like a plasterer or something. Anyway, where can we find you online? And the other thing that I wanted to ask you, when you're thinking about, like, if someone is in their business, and particularly if they're a woman in business and they're listening to you and they're just like, I don't have any sense of relief, I don't have any sense of security, I don't have any support in my business, where can they start? Because I think that sense of overwhelm sometimes stops people making change because they don't even know where to start. So can you talk about that as well? And if there's any like specific resource that you've got that we could share in the show notes, please share away, because I
Mm.
would love
Yeah.
people to be able to start.
Yeah. So one of the places people could go and find out more about me and my services
Mhm.
is my website at
Mhm.
craftyfoxbydesign.com. And
Beautiful.
on there, I actually have a page that has free resources.
Oh,
And
perfect.
if someone hasn't um, used the services of a VA before and they're not really sure about what sort of tasks they could pass on to a
Mm.
virtual assistant, I actually have a free download that they can get in there, that they can get to their inbox, and it is 25 tasks to outsource to a VA. And that lists all of the different things that specifically I can help with.
Yeah.
And I also have some bit down the bottom as well. It talks about the different pieces of software that I use or have used and can
Mhm.
support them in. So that'll give them a starting point. The other thing is that if they want to jump on a call with me, then I'll have different options of doing that as well. And one of those could be actually be a strategy session where we actually do a bit of a dive into the business and
Mhm.
work out where they're at, what they might need support with, where the gaps are, can I fill those gaps for them, and so forth.
Yeah,
The other
so
thing that
invaluable.
if they are working on their own, I realize that sometimes working on your own can be a little bit isolating. I mean, you mentioned at the start that we are part of a mastermind, and so
Yeah.
we get to connect with each other and other people as well. But if you're not in that space, I
Mhm.
also have a virtual co-working session
I
that
didn't know
people can
that.
a
That's
virtual
cool.
a virtual co-working session that people can jump on with me. I have there's a few little bonuses that they can get, and one of the things that we can do is we can actually the first section that we can do within that is actually do a brain dump, work out all of the things that you've got going on in your head at the moment or on your to-do list, and then from there we can basically divide and conquer and get it done.
Okay, so back to the feeling of relief that we were talking about before, which is not the ongoing feeling, but the feeling of actually knowing that you offer those two things. And I remember a little while ago, like I was full on peaking meltdown stage in one of our coaching calls back in February because my study load was ridiculous. I had lots of clients and a couple of things personally going on, and I just felt like I couldn't find any bit bandwidth to even figure out where to start. And I wasn't really seriously thinking about hiring team members, but I almost got to breakdown stage in that I didn't know what else I could do. Like that was really, which I'm very grateful for. So I also very much honor what you're saying before about, if it's a no, it's not necessarily like a forever no. It's just like you are being nudged to something that will be for your highest good. You shared the document with the 25 tasks to outsource, and I remember reading it and just going, like my mind, like my little addled, overwhelmed brain, that emoji that's
Mm,
like mind
yeah.
blown, because I hadn't even, like, again, like what I was saying, I was so close to the trees in my business, and the fact that I just had no sleep, no emotional regulation, no ability to juggle all of the demands, that just that simple checklist where I could go, oh my God, what I could actually give, like 50% of what I'm doing. Like literally, that was the light bulb moment that I had. I was like, oh my goodness, I am doing in my business about 50% of what I'm doing does not need to be me.
Mm,
And that was a huge realization. I think we need to talk about the magic of co-working, because if people out there have never experienced this strange magic that is co-working, do you find it is super, super productivity, like exponential fast track land, or is it just me? Because
yeah.
I just feel, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the co-working sessions are, I guess, the next level, and I think
Mm,
part of that is the accountability, because if you like, we do it virtually, and if
mhm,
as a group, and if you put in the chat what you're gonna be working on for the
mhm.
session, then you sort of go, "Hang on, I said I was gonna do that." It brings back to
Yeah.
integrity. I said I was gonna do something. I better
Mhm.
just sit down and get it done.
Yep.
And then you can tick it off your to-do list. And I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but there's this certain rush that you get with ticking stuff off
Oh,
the list. And
I love a tick. In fact, I have been putting things on my to-do list just to tick them off, which is
yes,
ridiculous. But my
yes.
dopamine starved brain says,
Mm,
"Woo!" What I would say about co-working too, because the mastermind we are in is my first experience of proper co-working. I've kind of been in things before that have been called co-working, but they're really not. Um, what I find to be magic, it's the accountability. But, and I don't know whether this is just me. There's a thing when people talk about neurodivergent brains where they say if there's a lot of resistance around doing an activity, body doubling is one of the ways that you can get around it. So if you're feeling like, this is a silly example, but if you're feeling really resistant to making a healthy meal, or you find that a really big stretch, actually doing it with someone next to you as a partnership where you're literally side by side helps to just overcome that. I don't really understand whatever reason for it. But there is definitely a magic in, and because we do 4-hour sessions, like you can get a lot done in 4 hours if you stay on track. It definitely makes me far less distractible when I'm in a room with other people. And we don't even have our cameras on half the time. So I'm like, what? Anyway, that's why I say magic. So if you're listening and you have not experienced co-working magic, do you want to share when those sessions are, or do they change? In which case we'll just put the link in the show notes.
Well, initially, it's actually just a one-on-one co-working session with me,
Great.
and they can just book in a time through online calendar, so we can, look at a time that suits both of us, and then we can work together.
Yeah, perfect. And then you do the brainstorming and then figuring out, yes.
Mm.
And you want to be brainstorming, not with someone the same as you, with someone that is systems minded and objective. So yeah, there's a difference between brainstorming with your business bestie who knows you and your business inside out versus an objective, process driven, creative brain. You have a very unusual brain to be able to do both of those things. Very cool. Very, very cool. It's been such a joy to get to know more of you and to hear, the reasons. I think it's really important to talk about the reasons we start our business, and that's not, I think entrepreneurship, we've almost gone a little bit too far, and it's like, it's about scaling and selling or making X amount of money or whatever. And the majority of people I work with, and certainly for myself, the income is a welcome benefit, but the time freedom and the location freedom and the sense of satisfaction of being part of a ripple effect by far for me is that deep satisfaction where when I go to bed at night, I'm like, okay, my head hits the pillow and I feel like I've done purposeful, useful, satisfying work. Which I think is one of the best feelings in the world, in fact. Thank you so much for your time. We will make sure that we put all the links in the show notes. So I'm going to grab them from you when we finish recording. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. And if you enjoyed this ep, please share it with another midlife friend or take the opportunity to go and rate and review the show on your favorite listening platform. All of these things really help us to reach more women in midlife. Now, I don't know if you know, but I am both a storyteller who helps healers and helpers capture and communicate their work through the magic of storytelling. And I'm a midlife self-care coach who is super passionate about helping other women reframe perimenopause and midlife as a powerful and purposeful time of transformation. To find out more about me and my work, you can head to Instagram at Kylie Patchett or my website kpcreative.com.au, and that is kpkreative.com.au, and you will find all of those links in the show notes. Have a spectacular day, and may you be setting yourself wild and finally fucking free.